You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. Welcome back to Just a Dude podcast, where we unpack the wild, weird, and wonderful stories of everyday folks. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we're diving back into the chaos of life's misadventures with a returning guest who's made us laugh and learn through his storytelling. Get ready for more tales of epic blunders, heartfelt growth, and the kind of wisdom you only get from winning stupid prizes. He's back by popular demand. Andy Dietrich, the author of Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes, joins us again to share more about his knack for turning life's facepalm moments into stories that hit you in the heart and the funny bone. Andy, your first episode was a hit, and we're thrilled to have you back. If you wouldn't mind, remind the audience who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Nathan, thanks for having me again. My name is Andy Dietrich. I am the author of Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes, short stories. Thank you. That one right there. Short stories about friendship, growth, and social misdemeanors. And this is the second time you and I are talking. I'm looking forward to it. Let's have a good time.
Yeah, we had a great time the first time up.
Yeah,
I mean, we definitely covered the funny. I don't want to say funny like there's a not funny part of your book, but we covered the less serious side of your book the first time.
Fair.
And now we're back. But I want to know, so what's happened since the last time that we talked? I know one thing you said is that you were shopping for engagement rings. How did that go?
It went really well. At the slight chance of, no, hold on. By the time this episode airs. No, well, we'll be in good time. Okay, so I got a ring for the lady, got an engagement ring. The struggle was that she is a very non-traditional person when it comes to jewelry. She doesn't wear jewelry at all. She wears very, very minimal makeup, which is awesome because she gets ready in 5 minutes, right?
My wife's the same way. That's so funny.
Love it, right? Because I've been with someone who took 2 hours, and don't get me wrong, she did it to the T, right? She did the nines and everything, but 2 hours to get ready is excessive, right? There is no such thing as, hey, we have a thing, let's go, right? Like, nope, you gotta pause, right? Anyway, so we were shopping around for rings. We very quickly found out that she just wasn't the traditional ring wearing type. She doesn't like flashy. She doesn't like shiny. So like gold, rose gold, silver, all that was out the window. So I said, well, let's just get you used to wearing something. So I got her a small size 5, like men's tungsten or titanium, whatever it was, band, just so she get used to, having something on her finger. And she got used to that. Perfect. So then I rubbed my little 2 brain cells together and I figured out, okay, what does she like? She likes dark colors, muted colors, this, that, and the other. And I came up with a design. There's a website online that lets you design your own non-traditional ring, right? And I'm like, perfect. So I ran it through the little customizer, the size, there's a little inscription on the inside. It came out really, really nice. And then once I got it in the mail, once I had it in hand, I sent some of her close female friends a picture and they were like, oh my God, she's going to love it. That's perfect. So nice. The plan is we're going to go to Europe in July for a good 3 weeks.
Nice.
We're going to hit Portugal. I'm not trying to humble brag here. I'm just telling you what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
This is me being a baller. No. This is just our once every 10 years Europe trip, right? So we're going to hit Portugal. We're going to do Spain. Then we're going to go to Germany, obviously, because that's where my family's at. Introduce her to my side of everything. And then we're going to take a little train to Amsterdam or Belgium, one of the two. There's going to be a festival called Tomorrowland, which is a big, big music festival.
Nice.
That if you know anything about like EDM music festivals, you know the name Tomorrowland, right? And that's going to be our destination for that last weekend. And then we're going to hit London for another couple of days before we fly back. So it's going to be 3 weeks, about 4 nights or 4 days in each location. And I figured somewhere within there, the opportunity will present itself.
Nice. I love it. So good. I won't ruin any surprises because I don't think this episode will be out till like October.
Perfect.
Andy. So You'll be good.
By that time, it'll either be thumbs up or thumbs down. No, I think it'll be thumbs up.
We'll do part 3 to find out how it went.
Perfect.
Right. But no, that's awesome. Have you had any new or remembered any new stupid games or stories that maybe you didn't share in your book?
So there was one that, there was a few things I left out in the book just because I didn't remember them. Some things are better told in person.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things like inflections of certain things I don't come across. And there are some things that I call people out, and not in a demeaning or negative way, but some people I just don't want to make anyone feel like they were negatively impacted by my stories, right? So that means I have to change the first name. That's perfectly fine, what have you. There was one particular story that I left out, and you'll see why. It's going to be very difficult to kind of put this in writing to and keep the same kind of momentum, the same energy of the story with it. But I was in when I was working for a former employer many years ago. It was me, my coworker, and then our boss. I took a trip to Texas for work-related things. And I remember sitting in a conference room, just for us getting our bearing in the morning. We got some work to do, and so my coworker's friend was Nathan, and Nathan, oddly enough,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And our boss said, "All right, Nathan, I want you to, work on X, Y, Z, and do blah blah." And Andy, I want you to, and right in the middle of him talking, he started yawning. Right, and I want you to, right. And I'm like, "All right, man, let me just make sure I got this straight. Nathan gets to work on X, Y, Z, and I got to." I thought it was funny. I was the only person laughing, right?
How did your boss find that?
He
Did he have a good
like I
sense
said,
of humor?
I was the only person laughing. Let's put it that way. He had a decent sense of humor, but at that point he kind of stared me down with his eyes. He kind of squinted a little extra hard at me, and I'm like, "Yep, all right." I just definitely pushed the boundary a little bit on that one. All right.
Yeah, that's so funny. I would have laughed if I was there with you, Andy. I would have laughed because I would have done the same thing. I'm like the jokey type of guy. I
You're
like
a
to
lovable
joke around
degenerate
with it.
like I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We don't sit there to make fun of people.
No,
You
never.
find something funny, you laugh at it, or you make something up, and But some people get bent out of shape on those types of things. But that is funny.
The other one I'll share about said boss. So he was half Japanese, half Jewish. How that kind of came to be, I'm not 100% sure, but it is what it is, right? So on another work trip, I decided, I don't know what got into me that particular trip, but I asked him, because he had the half Japanese face, right? So the eyes and everything. And I asked him, "Hey man, hey, when I have a question for you," and I'm kind of sighing on the inside, even like recounting the story, right? But I said, "Hey man, let me ask you something. When you watch movies, do they have to be widescreen, or can you just watch them regular 4:3 format?"
How did he take that one?
He squinted at me even harder. And I say with the most loving, in the
You know-
most loving way, my girlfriend is Asian, right? I've had many Asian friends and girlfriends in the past, so there's nothing against, right? That group of
Yes.
people. I'm just taking a
Yeah.
stab at the stereotype. That's all.
And I think, especially when we think about things that are funny, and that's for me in my life, Andy, like the stereotype things are funny, regardless of who it's for. It's hilarious because you can see some similarities there,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And I think some people, and generally, my belief is if you're offended, that's your problem. I mean, no offense, but I didn't come to deliberately offend you. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Sure,
So it's
100%.
like if you're offended, it's kind of your problem. Sorry about that,
For
but
sure.
yeah, but
You bring up a
it
good
is.
point, actually. As you said that, it jogged my memory. One of my most favorite people in the world, George, and if you've read the book, you know his name pops up a few times. He dropped some truthisms from time to time, and he said one day, he goes, the Constitution protects many things. Your feelings is not one of them.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've even seen some things where, they say the First Amendment, right? Specifically, the First Amendment is there to protect the speech you don't want to hear, not the speech that you do want to hear. Because that's the stuff you generally don't want to hear is the opposite, right?
Sure.
So that's
interesting. Okay,
it
I like
is
that.
interesting.
Yeah,
To think of it that way. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be going in a crowded movie theater yelling fire.
Well,
But
here's the thing,
yeah.
and I'll add my little 2 cents to it. So the First Amendment obviously protects your speech. However, it does not protect you from the repercussions of your speech.
Correct. Yeah, there is always, I say this too, there's always a consequence, and it
That's
can
right.
be negative or it could be positive.
Right.
And whatever your action is, there's going to be a consequence
That's
for
right.
it. So,
You
yeah,
pay your when you play stupid games, right?
absolutely. And I mean, that's one of the greatest phrases I think of all times, other than, F around and find out.
Right.
FAFO, I think is what they say, trying to keep it PG.
There was a if you've watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, Captain Picard is like the G, right? He's like the goat of all captains, right? And there was I can't, it was like on Reddit, some sort of Star Trek meme, whatever it was, and the title said something like Picard's way of saying F around and find out, and it was a screen grab from an actual episode, and he said, "You may test that hypothesis at your convenience."
Yes, exactly. It's funny you mentioned that because my wife and I just started. Well, I wouldn't say just started. We're like, I don't know, 20 episodes into season 1 of Next Generation. So we had never seen it before, but
oh my God, you have not seen
No,
TNG?
okay. Never seen it before.
The first few seasons, the first couple episodes of the first few seasons are a little rough. They get a little they're trying to in my opinion. They're trying to find their groove, their momentum.
Yeah.
But later on, once they get into like their groove of who's who and like the dynamics, it gets really, really juicy. It gets good. I
Yeah,
like
it's
it.
so far I'm loving it, and we watch like an episode or something at night when
Sure.
we're getting ready to wind down.
Yeah,
But
don't binge it,
yeah,
right? Because once you're done, right?
yeah,
Don't eat the
exactly. There's
entire
no more
pie all
coming
at
out.
once. That's right.
Exactly. As long as there's no movies like the original Star Trek movies, which I'm sorry, those were terrible movies.
Yeah, I don't. Let's
I
move on
loved,
from that topic.
yeah, I loved the series just because of the
Sure,
cheesiness,
sure,
and just
sure.
how it was.
Deliciously
But
cheesy. Yes.
yes, I mean it was fantastic, and there was some great art in there too. If you think about it, just some of the sets and stuff they
Mm-hmm.
built at that time, it was great. But yeah, awesome. So you're gonna get engaged. You're going to Europe. You shared a couple of stories with us. Anything else going on in your life that you find amusing or you want to share?
So no, I mean the usual like Vegas, right? We try to keep ourselves busy and out of trouble. No, I gotta say, work is good, friendships are good, love life is good. For a relationship, it's all where it needs to be. It's all in a
That's awesome.
very, it's in a very nice steady state. Now, of course, I think you have to be mindful about when everything is great. You have to be mindful not to get bored because I think boredom is they used to say they told me or they told us when I was in basic training or even in MOS school afterwards. They said the most dangerous Marine is a bored Marine. And I didn't know
Yep.
what that meant at the time, right? But I realized that now, whereas the most dangerous type of person is a bored type of person.
Yeah, idle hands are the devil's playground, as they
You know?
say, right?
Yep. So you
Because
come up
you
with dumb shit to do, right? Because you're like, I
do.
have time.
There's so much stuff, and I think that we're our own worst enemy in those moments
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Because we're always like, "Oh, this is a great idea because I haven't done anything or I'm bored out of my mind. Let's see how this goes." Now, naturally, Andy, as we get older, right, we think those things through a little
Wow.
bit before we
Wow.
do them. But yeah, our younger years. I mean, I could tell you, I've seen. With my, I wanted to share a story with you that I think the listeners would probably find funny. Maybe not, but
Let's
when
go.
I was a when I was a police officer, I was got dispatched to a trailer park. Imagine that. It was
I already love the start of
yeah.
this. Continue.
So it was a loud noise complaint from one of the trailers. We're there all the time. It was a weekend night. I knew everybody was drinking, probably underage. So
Sure,
we get
sure.
there and everybody's standing and they go inside the trailer and they're like, "Well, be quiet." Like they knew the routine, right? Because these people have dealt with us all the time. Well, obviously there was a new kid there and he decided that it was a great idea to jump out the back window and start running. So
Hmm.
naturally, in my state,
Yeah.
I run after him. Well, I'm running, around the trailer. Now, let me add this part in. I've got a partner. Now, I'm not a big guy. Like I'm, brawny but not tall. I'm only 5'5".
Mhm.
I come around, I'm chasing this kid, and my partner, who is 6'7", shows up
I'll
and is
drink.
standing at the corner of the the trailer that he's running around and I'm chasing him and he just clotheslines this kid.
Sure.
And I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like in the cartoons where
Like
his
sit
feet
down.
went up in the air and, he did a couple of spins. And anyway, his dad sees this happen. His dad's at this party with a bunch of underage kids. Don't ask me why. It's hillbilly heaven, really where we were at. And so he decides that he wants to run his mouth and get arrested too, and tries to assault
Hmm.
my partner, which didn't go well, right? So
No,
we
of
get him,
course
we get him
not.
back to the station. They're effing us, trying to kick us. We put him in the holding room. We only have one holding room. We're a small police department. They're in there. This is where the story gets really weird and kind of funny. They're yelling at us, going, "Hey, we need to use the bathroom." Now, mind you, they're drunk. They've been drinking a lot, and I'm like, I'm not going to uncuff you unless you can tell me that you're going to, behave yourself. I don't want to end up fighting with you outside or in the bathroom. And they'd like, "No, F you," all these dirty words and stuff. And then the weirdest thing I ever saw in my life is the kid backs up in handcuffs to his dad because we've got him in the same room, right? We know they're not going to hurt each other. They're father son. Pulls down his dad's pants and proceeds to pull out his male genitalia so that he could pee. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing,
That
right?
is. I'm having a hard time even picturing it.
Yes. So where it gets funny is I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I told you we got to pee." And he's like, "F you, cop." And then he slips and falls in his dad's urine.
No,
And I'm like, if it's
Mike,
not
it's
bad enough that you're going to go to jail tonight, now you're going to smell like your dad's pee.
that's P grade. Just the, I mean, there's okay. There is so much to unpack it. There is so little to
Yes.
understand here, right? It's like I
Yes.
don't. I'm at the cusp of wanting to like delve deeper into it, but the better half of me says no. There
Don't.
comes a point when you stop asking questions.
Yes. And this is, I've got stories like this that I could probably go for years. I could probably write my own book like yours, but where other people played stupid games and won stupid prizes. But it is, I mean, that to me was fun. I'm sorry, I love my dad and everything, but I'm not pulling out his
No,
manhood.
no, no. The closest thing I've gotten to something like that is when I live with a he's my little brother in the fraternity, Josh. He's prevalent or he makes an appearance in some of the stories in the book as well. We lived together for a number of years and we've grown quite close. He's like my family here in Las Vegas, right? Him and George, the person I mentioned earlier. And we would, have the would you or the what if or would you rather, right? Like guys tend to do, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, hey man, what if I broke both of my arms and I needed my manhood trimmed, right? Would you do that for me? See, I was gonna get some love that night,
Yeah.
right? Obviously
Yeah.
from whoever I was with, but like, would you, me having broken arms or me not being able to, would you go take a set of trimmers and trim it up? And he's like, man, because you're like, man, what do you?
Exactly.
There's no wrong answer, right? I mean, you can say
No.
one way or the other. You're like, look, perfectly acceptable. There's nothing. I was going to say there's nothing wrong with it. Well, of course you could argue it, right? But I'm like,
You
there's
could,
something
yeah, one way or
questionable
the
about it,
other.
right? And you're like,
Exactly.
well, would you or would you not? Your best friend, would you trim his goods so he can get laid that night? You're like, come on, man. I don't want to play this game anymore, man.
Yeah, exactly. I would probably, yeah, I would have to find an excuse to say, sorry, Andy.
I shake your hands. I do not
Yeah.
want that there, right?
Like maybe she can help you.
There's a win-win.
That is, it's funny when you get into those situations and you start talking about, these what ifs and these weird things, And it's like one of the things that I always thought about was I talked to another guest the other day, or not the other day. Yeah, the other day, actually.
You
And,
have other guests?
yeah, I'm like, yeah, can you believe it,
Gosh,
Andy? Like,
whatever.
I
Fine.
said,
Third
one of
favorite Nathan.
the most unbelievable thing to me is that I never thought that at the tender, young, beautiful age of 43, I would have
Only one of those statements is correct.
none of them. No, but I never thought that we would be asking somebody what is a male and what is a female. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to get political, but I'm just trying to say how like things come on. Because if you were to say, hey, Andy, if I were to tell you back in 1990, right? Or like when you graduated high school, which was what, probably mid 90s?
Late
Is that
90s,
about
yeah.
right?
You're not
Yeah.
the same age. Yeah.
No, yeah, we're the same age. So in the mid 90s, if I were to tell you that, hey, in 2024, 2025, there's going to be 25 genders, what would you have said to me?
Like, I don't even know how to process that, right?
You'd be like, what's the matter with you? Right. It's just, it's crazy. And these are these things like where these what ifs, and you're like, wait a second, was that a what if that came true?
Yeah, I mean, look, we can go down that path for a second because I think it actually is an interesting concept or an interesting topic to cover. I believe that, when you get really esoteric into the, 3 plus, 4 plus, 10 plus genders and the different flavors and the different, right, the
Right.
cis and all the other different terms that I'm just not too familiar with, right? I understand LGBTQ plus, but after that, I kind of
Yeah.
lose track of what's what.
That's about where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do believe that there is going to be a minority of people who that's their life, right? And they champion that. They believe that's the way of dealing with things. But look, just like when you look at furries, right? That whole movement
Yeah.
of people that believe that they are identifying as a furry creature, or the flat earthers, or the
Yeah.
chemtrailers, or the
You're
pick your
absolutely
poison,
right.
right? And you have these little niche groups that are sometimes very, very vocal, right? And you hear them screaming, proverbially screaming, but then I feel like also it's blown out of proportion because the
Yeah.
media picks it up. I'm not blaming the media. The media has its own issions to deal with, right?
I
But it's
blame the media all the time,
for
Andy. It's all
everything,
right.
right? Thanks, Obama, right? Just
Yeah.
blame
Thanks
someone
a
who's not here
lot. No,
to
exactly.
right? I feel like the media, because it's a story that gains traction, right? Because it gets the attention of people. They repeat it, and the more times you hear something repeated, the more you think it's actually happening. It really isn't. But the fact that it's repeated for a good 3 months over and over and over, you're like, are there really these hundreds of thousands of people who believe that, cisgender, demi queer, blah blah blah? I'm like, probably not. But it just gets reverberated, right? And you hear it over and
And
over and over.
you bring up that good point too, is that because it's reverberated, I mean, you feel like you're going to walk outside your house and just get surrounded by the LGBTQ plus community,
or furries or
Yeah, or
chemtrailers or
furries, or
the
or flat
fluoride
earthers
or
are
whatever. Yeah,
everywhere,
flat earthers,
but
right? I mean, pick
but
your
yeah,
poison. Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is it just gets such a loud voice or a
Yeah.
platform, right,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
pushes out to everybody. But in the reality of it, what is it? Probably like 2 to 3% of the population, if that.
Whatever it is, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I can look. We had an experiment like in psychology class about how quickly, if you make up a good story, for example, I'm just going to make something up on the spot. Okay, just keep in mind that the next 2 minutes of me monologuing are we going to be completely fake. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sure someone's going to take that
Note to
clip.
listeners.
Someone's going to take
Yes.
that clip and say this IT professional with 30 years said this, and then just like take that clip of all nonsense, right? I'm going to say that. Okay, a laptop screen, when you open it up, should always be facing the sun, because what happens is, even though it's projecting the screen onto the lap, or the image onto the laptop screen, inside it's also, instead of projecting, it's also receiving. So when you face it the sun, there are little photosensitive cells that actually gain energy from the sun shining on it, almost like a poor man's solar panel, right? So if you want your battery life, the laptop to work longer and better, it's better for it to be exposed to sunlight. So when you're not using the laptop, have it turned off, open the screen, and just face it towards the window, right? It's going to make the battery span longer. Now, all that was completely made up. But if I say I'm an IT professional with 30 years experience, which that is a true fact, right?
Right.
I can make, and I like to think that it was believable enough the way I conveyed that information. Someone's going to go, you know what? I'm going to do that. And that freaking quickly, one person does it. Wait, man. Hey, Bob, what are you doing? Oh, this IT professional told me to do this because blah, blah, blah. It is scary how quickly nonsense spreads and how quickly
Yeah.
people latch onto it. And as long as you come across in a convincing manner and then add some BS credentials, or any credentials for that
Yeah.
matter, you can
No,
say
you're absolutely
I'm the
right.
CEO of Stratton Oakmont. It's
Yeah.
like, of what company? Well, if you watch Wolf of Wall Street, that's all it's all bull crap anyway,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, anything is, and then with AI these days, I've dabbled in AI for a bit. The videos, the voiceovers you can do,
Yeah.
it is scarily impressive what you can do with AI these days. And it really gets to the point where every day is April Fool's Day, where you really have to look at
It
everything
is.
with a magnifying glass and say, is this real? Am I being bamboozled, or is this actually factual?
And it's funny that you say that, because even this program that we're recording on, and for those listening, it's not no secret, it's called Riverside, but they do
Fake
a lot
news.
with,
Fake
yeah,
news.
they do AI. And when I edit, Andy, if I misspeak or say something wrong, because it has a recording of my voice, I can actually lip dub and make myself say the same word, and you would never know that I had said, misinterpreted. But it's pretty freaky how
Oh,
that works.
yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a great point, because like, look at Tide, and obviously this is a little bit different because Tide Pods didn't come from a professional, but look at how that spread like
That
wildfire.
whole, right, that challenge or whatever, right? And thank God these challenges only last like bottle flipping. These things have a longevity of maybe like a month, maybe two, right? As fidget spinners, right? They're hot
Yes,
for a minute and then they die out just as quickly. Thank God, right?
exactly. Fidget spinners, I forgot about that. Yeah, I had a
No,
boss
do
that
not forget about fidget spinners. The
I had a
LED
boss that
ones,
always had
dude.
one on his desk and would spin it when we talked. And I mean, he was a good
God,
boss, so I didn't give him anything for it. But yeah, he
you're
would.
like, or the guys who say, "Do you vape, bro?" I'm like, no, I like to have sexual activity. I don't, I don't even you. I like to get laid. I
Well,
don't like using those words.
and it's funny because I grew up in a time, and it's so weird, and I'm probably going to get a bunch of junk from listeners on this, but back in the day when we didn't like something in the 90s, we called it gay.
Hmm,
And
yeah.
that's what I used to say with vaping, like, oh, no, that's gay.
I think Louis C.K. he has a whole bit about something being, pardon my French, being faggy, right? But not in
Hmm.
that derogatory term. He says, no, if someone's being, can I say it on the air, right? He's just being, he's being a faggot, right? It's not being he's gay, just he's being. And I think Louis C.K.'s example was, people from Phoenix are called Phoenicians. Be like, shut up, faggot! Like, it's like, just stop being stupid, right? But it has no connotation towards your sexual orientation. And one thing I want to add to that, take a little more serious tone. I have nothing but empathy for people who struggle with their sexual identity, sexual preference. Because how would I feel? Let's flip this around for a minute. I'm a white dude, heterosexual, genetic lottery speaking. I hit a couple of, some double bonus points on
Yeah.
the way out, right? Uh, how would I feel if I woke up tomorrow and my sexual preference, my orientation, although it's deeply ingrained into who I am, I've never felt any
Hmm.
different, and probably never will feel any different from how I feel about it today. how would I feel if I woke up tomorrow and it is a topic that is acceptable in some jurisdictions, not acceptable in other families, depends on which way you lean politically, it's okay, it's not okay. How would I feel if I were to be on the receiving end of what, say, gay guys and girls deal with on a daily basis? I have a really good, really close friend of mine who is gay, and he's struggled. I know he struggled with his sexuality, his sexual preference, probably for forever. And he told me on a few occasions, he goes, if I could wake up straight, that would be the happiest day of my life.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
I don't even know how to process that. That is such a heavy burden to carry. And how do you process something that is deeply ingrained within you, and you have no choice in the matter, and your preference is on good days frowned upon, on bad days you
Yeah.
can get killed.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's a great point to bring up, is putting yourself in other people's shoes, because we can sit there and say, if that had happened to
Sure,
me, this is what I would do.
sure.
But that hasn't happened to you, right? And so you don't know. You don't know that you've got different feelings. And, I'm not saying that, people shouldn't talk to people about what they're feeling and get things out, whether it be, a psychologist or their parents, whoever, friend, whatever, talk to somebody, right? If you've got different feelings, talk to somebody, you can get, a better image of yourself. But no, that's a great point to sit there and say, you really got to look at how these people, what they're going through, and then put yourself through it and say, how would I want to be treated in this same situation?
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. But yeah, awesome. I want to switch up things. I've got the
Yeah.
book in front of me here.
Let's
I want to get to
let's
the.
put the clutch in and switch to second gear, let the clutch off, and then put the gas back on.
Let's do it. I like
For all the Gen Zers, they're like, what is he talking about? Right? Sorry,
exactly
it's this
the
manual shift. Okay.
the Gen Z. What do they call it? Anti-theft system. The
That's
stick
right.
shift.
I don't mean to. I don't mean to
No.
like put down that demographic of your listeners. I didn't learn how to drive stick shift till my very first stick shift, car back in 2006, and I learned the hard way, that you stalled out very quickly. But nowadays,
Yep.
they've taken that away from you. I mean,
They
so
have.
rarely can you even buy cars that even have manual transmissions.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna divulge to a different story. How I learned how to drive stick was I needed a vehicle. I found a truck. It was a stick. It was a 5-speed, and I told my dad. I said, "Hey, I need a vehicle. It's a stick. Can you teach me how to drive it?" I basically forced myself to learn how to drive because that's
Yeah,
all I had.
yeah. You
So he
learn.
took me around a parking lot a couple times, and then after that, I was on my own. But yeah,
The Wrangler your story is very much like mine, right? The Wrangler that I got with a manual transmission, I stalled it driving it off the lot. I
yeah,
stalled it 20 more times driving it home.
yep.
You learn, right?
Yeah, exactly. You do. Same like when I had a motorcycle, and I had just gotten my license. I go to drive it off the lot, pull off the lot into the car, and then stall it. And I'm like, oh,
The
you know?
the biggest like oh crap moment is when you're the first one at a light, and
Yes.
you're an inexperienced manual
Yep.
transmission driver, and turns green. You're like, don't choke, don't choke, don't choke. Don't be
Exactly.
that guy.
The worst thing is if you're sitting on a hill, and you're in a car,
Yes,
and
yes,
you
yes,
got the
yes,
little bit
yes.
of
Yep,
roll. If
yep,
you're
yep.
good, you could do it without
Sure,
rolling.
sure.
But
But
yeah, you get a
inexperienced,
little
no.
bit of roll, and
Yep,
if someone's right on your rear end, you're
yep.
just sitting there going, "Oh, please don't let
Please
me roll
don't.
into them."
That's right.
But awesome. So everybody knows the last time Andy was on the show, we did talk about his book, and basically it's broken up into 2 parts, right, Andy? I mean, that's how we'd say it. The first part is a good set of funny stories and outcome, and the second part, I guess how would you describe the second part? Is that more of your deeper thoughts?
Yeah, if you actually want to hold up.
We'll do it. We'll read together.
Oh my God, yes. So the first part is it's called silly stories. Literally, part the first is silly stories, and really that kind of encapsulates what the stories are. They're silly, they're lighthearted, they're here to invoke feelings of tomfoolery
Yeah.
and tomfoolery. What's the other one? Anyway, there are shenanigans and other such things. Anyway, but part the second, I labeled rants, opinions, reflections, realizations, and condemnations. And if you look at it on page 101, it creates a little geometric shape. So there you go.
Yes. Nice. Nice. I
That's on
like that.
purpose.
I figured it was because you must have got that from your editor, huh?
Actually, so I'm gonna spill some beans right now. There is no editor.
I know.
No, okay, well, okay.
You
So
told us
beans.
last time.
I'm
That's
gonna
why I was
unspill the
joking.
beans
Yeah,
then. No. So
unspill the beans. Yeah.
if you see
There's
the footnotes and editor says this, editor says that, there is no editor. It was just me. And
yeah,
and
and it's
and it was a Grammarly. Grammarly helped me a lot
yep.
too.
And I gotta tell everybody, because if they get I originally had the Kindle copy, so there's little
Oh yes,
notes
that's right.
on
That's
it.
right.
So
Yep.
make sure you hit them to read the extra notes, because if you get the printed copy, they're written in the in the bottom,
The
you
bottom
know,
there,
but
yeah.
if you get
Where they
the Kindle
belong.
copy, yeah, exactly. You
I
got to
never thought
click a
about
little
that. Yeah,
link.
your
But
Kindle, right? Your Kindle version, you have to like,
yeah.
because it's on the last few pages, isn't it? Isn't that how it
Yeah, so
works?
what it does is like within it, when you put a little note, it has like a link, and then it just pops it up on the
Breaks
page
up
what
the
you were writing
flow.
about it.
Momentum
So
completely
yeah,
dies. No, screw that.
exactly.
Get a physical copy. I think you. Plus, you can beat people with it too. Like
Yeah,
get off my lawn. You like roll it up and
and
chase kids.
for the small payment, if you send Andy $1,000, he will autograph it for you and send you a copy.
I'll
No,
have my secretary autograph it for you.
yes.
Come on. I can't be bothered. Come on, get out of here.
But no, there was so one of my favorite parts of the book, Andy. This is where I wanted to dive in, and it's just other thoughts, right? 228, the last section of the book. I thought it was
Yeah.
fantastic because some of these things are they're just great little thoughts. So
It's me, just
one,
me ranting, right? Me
yeah,
just my
but
my. Go ahead.
it's just what I wanted to share with the audience because when we look at it, it's like here's one of the things, and this is how easy of a read this book is, which is why I love it. Is one of the points is we should never kill time with friends. We spend it. And I mean, look at how simple of a phrase that is, but
Yeah,
how deep that goes.
yeah.
You know?
I'm glad you brought that up because there's a lot of short little snippets of thoughts that because they're in such quick fire succession on some of these pages, you have literally 2.5 pages of just like one line thoughts and introspections. One that I really wanted to expand into an actual chapter, but then couldn't quite figure how to elegantly and eloquently write it was everything is easy once you know how to do it. Until then, it
Yes.
is not, right? And it's like, what's an easy thing to read? You're like, oh, of course, I get that, but think about that for a second, right? The first time you're presented with driving stick shift, doing calculus, doing a new thing at work, figuring out how to, I don't know, clean the ducts in your dryer or some crap, whatever, right? If you don't know how to do it, it's daunting. It's difficult, right? It's something that you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Once you know how to do it, it's easy. So when people say, "Oh no, it's
Exactly.
easy," well, of course it's easy for you because you know how to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing, like you said, you work in technology and I work in technology on the project
Mm-hmm.
side, but it's like, there's things that we learn every day and
All day.
new, whether it be software, languages, whatever, that we're just constantly learning. And it's like when we first start off, we're like, oh, this sucks. This is hard. And then, we get into it and we're like, no, it's better. But it's funny that you brought that one
Takes a
up
minute, yeah.
because that was one I was going to ask you about, because I was like,
The
man,
easy and the hard
like
one,
how
right?
deep that
It's
is. Yeah.
there's
You know?
there's another one that I want to share is this one is a little more, I don't know, heavy hitting, right? So this one is slut is used to attack women for their right to say yes. Friend zone is used to attack women for their right to say no. Bitch is used to attack women for their right to call you on it. If this doesn't make sense, read it again until it does. And it took me a couple of times to read that over and over and over. I go, I understand. Like it makes so much sense, right? 3 lines, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it's just like the double standards, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's there, and you see that, and you're absolutely right. And it's like the one thing that is funny that you have in here, and I know that every Marine I've ever met has said something like this. So,
Mm-hmm.
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, except Marines. Marines will kill you and sing songs about it, and that is literally the truth. Every devil dog friend of mine that has ever worn the uniform, they are the same way. What makes the grass grow? The red blood, right?
Yeah, there's a God. The ending to some of these cadences we used to sing would be something like "Napalm sticks to children" or
Yeah.
"Napalm sticks to candy," "Napalm sticks to churches." I mean, it's just a dark humor, right? So,
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
one other thing I want to add is I think it's 1-27. It's my story about a guy who took the ASVAB with me, right? So let me
Yeah.
just recount that story real
Go
quick. So
ahead.
before you join the military, you have to take what's called the ASVAB, which is their aptitude test, right? It's out of 100. It's not a complicated exam, right? It's like they ask you, what is this, a screwdriver or a machete, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's not a difficult exam to take,
No.
right? And they ask you some basic math questions, I think, some basic English questions. Just really, I mean, you have to just pass it. That's all you have to do, right? The passing score, I think for all the service branches is in the 30s. I know for the Marines it was at least at the time 32 or 34, so low 30s. Again, out of 100, right?
Hmm.
So the dude, there was a bunch of guys who took it with me, right? You get set in this little exam room with a computer screen and everything. The dude who was next to me had the thick, like ASVAB book, like you would think like the SAT or the
Yeah, like the how to
MSAT or
prepare
MCAT,
for
whatever,
the
right?
ASVAB, that
And it's
type
like
of
a
thing. Yeah.
thousand pages, right? I'm like, I didn't even know they had a book for this thing, right? How difficult is
You're
this
like, I'm just
this
winging
test,
it.
right? And this dude, and he told me he's failed the test like 2 or 3 times already. He's trying to go into the Marines, right? And the passing score is 32 or 34. And this is his third-ish time taking it. I'm like, oh my God, how difficult is this damn thing? He's got the study guide and everything. And then on that try that I sat there with him, right? I did my own thing. He did his own thing. But on that day, he hit the passing score on the dot, right?
Like right
And
there. Yeah.
like the 32 or the 34, he hit that score, right? And initially I wanted to say, what a dumbass, right? Like
Yeah.
how dumb do you have to, but no, hold on, pause for a second. This dude took it upon himself to get the study guide, and he was motivated enough and dedicated enough to take this exam even after failing it 2 or 3 times, whether it was the third or fourth time in taking it, right? He had the dedication to take it that many times because that's what he wanted to do. And yeah, he may not have been the smartest guy in the world, but the dedication. I mean, the dude was more dedicated than most people I've ever met. Like initially I wanted to in my head I thought, what a dumbass. But then I thought, no, dude, this guy is honest. Like he wanted this so freaking bad that even with his handicap, whatever you want to call it, he still made it work. Like that's amazing.
And yeah, so what? It's the lowest score. It's the lowest
Doesn't matter.
passing score that gets him in.
Right.
And I'm sure he probably ended up, infantry, something like that, right? But,
Sure.
But that's probably the job he wanted.
Yeah. And he's probably one of the most dedicated, motivated people you ever meet.
Yeah. Who knows? He could be a lieutenant colonel now.
Let's hope not. To your point though, right? You don't know how many, you never have to ask someone, right, what their passing score was or how many times they took it. Just like the bar, you can be a lawyer or either you have to be a lawyer or an attorney. You have to pass the bar for one of those two things. I can't remember which one, but no one will ever ask you how many times have you taken the bar. You can be once, it can be 10 times. No one will ask you. No one cares.
And they probably don't ask you what the score was either.
Yeah, no one cares. Once you pass it, you pass it.
That's all I care
about. It's like when you play Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring, you beat the game. Did you beat it with all the ashes of war? It doesn't matter. You beat the game, all right?
Exactly. It's kind of like all the degrees I have on my wall. And it's like no one has ever asked me, what was your grade point average? What classes did you take during that program? It's like, oh, you got a degree? Okay, great. Here, check a box, move on.
Yeah. The other thing I want to add about that story real quick before we move on is I tried leaving little breadcrumbs of things across littered across the entire book. So if you look at that title, 1-27, muscles are required, intelligence not essential. So that was me trying to spell out Marine in acronym format.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, little that is so cool. Little, what do you call them? Easter eggs.
Little Easter eggs, little breadcrumbs of Andy's silliness, right?
Yeah, I love it.
There's an auto reference in there too somewhere. If you find the auto reference, let me know.
The auto, okay.
The auto,
now I'm gonna have to reread it.
There is one thing I wanted to do that I couldn't. I wanted to leave in the Kindle version some way to write white font onto the white background so that if you read the book itself on Kindle, you would never see it. But if you highlighted it, you could highlight extra text. I was going to put in there, if you can read this, contact me for a prize, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't get it to work in the Kindle because you have to you reduce it down from a text to their version of the, not a PDF, but their version of a digital format. And it just wouldn't take. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm just going to, skip over that.
That's funny. That would have been pretty cool though. That like, I wonder if anybody would ever watch it or get it. You know what I mean, Andy?
There's a lot hidden in there. My phone number is in the book too. Like if you pay close attention, you'll find my phone number in there as well. So there's a lot of little Easter eggs, little Andyisms sprinkled across.
Not only is it a book of funny story and serious thoughts, but it's also an Easter egg hunt where you can go.
There's
find
a lot in there. There's a lot in there. Yeah,
it is awesome, and you could. I mean, you could be entertained just by the editor notes, which, as everybody knows now, doesn't
exist. That's right. So Andy's shoulder angel. You dumbass! Don't write that.
Yeah, that's so funny. The what was the other one? There was one other one I wanted to bring up because I thought it was pretty enlightening. Here's one because I think you and I will get along with this, and hopefully, we've talked about bosses we've had good and about, and I think other people are going to agree with this, but it's people don't quit their jobs; they quit their managers. Have you ever quit a job because of a manager that you had, Andy?
So I've had good and bad managers, and I will say I've had a shitty job that the only thing that kept me there was the manager that we had and the camaraderie of the guys that we had and the girls that were on our team. Other than that, the job was crap. We went through a lot of, sometimes some emotional, psychological trauma because of it. But our boss, our manager, just kept us sane, right? And I think that we've all been there where it's like, I hate this job. Why aren't you leaving? Well, because I love my coworkers. Like my boss takes care of me, but I hate the freaking job. Like you're stuck in this weird, like on off,
Yeah.
uh, we've all been there, I think.
There was one job I had, and this will let you know what type of manager this person was. But I sat down. I was working with the director. I was not like a regular worker, but maybe like a supervisor. I don't know. I was an analyst. Okay, so at the time, and we got a new manager, and they got rid of our director, who she was fantastic. Her name was Lisa. I'm going to give her a shout out. She did a great job.
Did she
But
ask about me?
no, she didn't.
Whatever.
But
Don't care.
they brought this manager in, and he comes in and he starts barking all these orders. He's like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, listen, man, do you understand what we do? Like you've been here for 2 weeks and you don't really understand what we do. And I think it would help you to make decisions if you understood the work we do. And he said, I'm a manager. I don't need to know what you do. I just need to provide results. And I'm like,
wow.
How can you provide results if you don't know what we do?
In that statement. Holy crap.
It's like he just let management go to his head and he figured he could manage whatever, however. And it's like, no, this is how we do. And I mean, if there's a different way you want to do it, that's great, but you should find out where we are before you take us to where we're going.
What did Jim say in The Office? I've never seen such a small amount of power go to someone's head.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. I love The Office. That is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah, there was you mentioned you jogged my memory on something, of course, and I've just completely spaced it out. Damn it. Okay, anyway, keep talking. It'll come to me.
No, I thought that was a good one because I think there's some of us out there that have literally left a job because of a manager. And, I mean, I've left jobs because I've gotten better jobs. And, I would say that probably
there are some times when you just leave because it's just better, right?
Yeah, better opportunities, something like that. It's never personal. It's just like they say, oh, it's business. That's right. It's a business of my life. I've got to, they're going to offer me more money and I'm going to go.
That's right. So I remember what I was going to say. So that manager that you spoke of just now, in that one short sentence, he completely described and explained the kind of manager that he was. Right. Yes. It's like, great. I know exactly the kind of person that you are.
I did not need to ask any other questions.
Thanks for clarifying. Right. So I was working with a coworker of mine. I was starting a job. This is many years ago. And in IT, when you do changes to a production, meaning like a live system that could affect other users or even the company from getting revenue, right? There are certain systems that are very, very white glove treatment. Because if these systems go down, then you're going to have to answer to some C-level executives who are going to ask, why is the system down? We need to make money with this being up all the time, right? Or we make money, using the system. So there's certain things that you have to follow within IT, right? There's paperwork, there's processes, there's approvals, right? So it was my first or second week at this particular job, and I was a system engineer, and we had a problem with the file server, and we unpacked the problem, and I said something like, look, we need to restart the server. It's just the next troubleshooting step. Okay, well, there needs to be some paperwork along with it. You need to get approval. People are in the system. You have to notify someone, right? Depends on the company. Everyone has a little different way of doing things.
Different processes, right?
Sure. And me being the new guy, I asked one of my fellow engineers, okay, well, can you... I'm new to the system, right? I'm new to the system. I'm new to the process. I don't even know who to contact for the approval. I don't know what kind of ticketing system or the ticket to put in, et cetera, et cetera. So I asked my coworker, my peer, can you do the paperwork for me and I'll reboot the system? And this dude said, I'll reboot the system for you, but I won't do the paperwork. And I'm like, I know exactly the kind of coworker that you are. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
This is the guy that never wants to do the paperwork.
Yep.
He doesn't mind doing the fun
press
stuff.
The button, right? But he doesn't want to do the paperwork. I'm like, cool. I know exactly the kind of engineer that you are. Awesome.
You know what? But that also tells me something about the company sometimes, is that if the paperwork's that much of it, now it could just be that guy, right, Andy? He could just be that guy.
It was just that guy. The company did a good job with his paperwork. Yeah, it was just him.
I was going to say, sometimes company puts, a bunch of paperwork that's not needed or, whatever. And I mean, of course, now if we had paperwork, they yell at us, but now everything's digital.
Yeah. How dare you bother me? Yeah. Just reboot the system.
Exactly.
I can tell you some IT stories, but I think I'll lose half your audience because
it is funny though, because I work with a smaller company, but we're a startup and we have, data scientists and engineers and all kinds of stuff. And when our guy comes on, he's like, oh, there's a problem with this server. He's just like, hey, everybody sit tight. I'm rebooting it. He just sends a message out in Slack, and then he's like, all right, it's back up. It's like, that's how easy it is, you know?
Yep. Some
But you're
systems
right.
you can, other ones you
And
cannot, right?
but when you get with bigger companies, bigger systems, and especially, right, the legacy ones, which we all love,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the you go in and you're like, wait a second, they stopped making this system in
I don't know. I don't
1984.
want to talk about that. Nope.
I
You
was
bring out some
3 years
PTSD.
old.
Nope. I will say when I first moved to Vegas in 2004, I worked for a small-ish casino company called Ameristar. We had at the time 5 or 6 smaller casinos all throughout the Midwest. There was one in Black Hawk, Colorado. There was one in Council Bluffs, Iowa, Kansas City, up in Jackpot, Nevada. Smaller, right? So nothing to hold against like Vegas casinos, because they're just massive here, right? But smaller places just have smaller casinos, which makes perfect sense. Even for a smaller casino company that we were, our VP of IT one day came into a meeting and he started writing on the whiteboard, and he just put out a bunch of system names and a dollar figure next to them. And he says, all right, everyone, just I need you to be mindful of this. Every minute that this system is down, it costs us this much money in potential revenue. Every minute that this system is down costs us this much money in potential revenue. And you're like, oh, maybe 10 or 100, no,
Yeah.
tens of
Yeah.
thousands of dollars of potential revenue lost per minute if the pullers are down, right? If you've ever worked in casinos, you know what that means, right? When the pullers are down, everything stops. They need to be fixed ASAP, right? So there's this really weird, not weird, but when you walk in, I was mid-20s, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, fresh out of the military. Oh, I'm going to fix some computers. I'm going to do this, that. Yeah, I'm going to, do all these awesome, cool things. And then the reality hits you of, no, this is a business, and you can't just go cowboying around doing the things that you want, right? Because you think it's the right thing to do. No, you have to be mindful about, if you take this system down and revenue is lost, you're going to answer to someone. It's not going to be a comfortable conversation for you.
And they might just take that revenue out of your salary by letting you
Well,
go.
that's never happened, thankfully, but right.
But I mean, it is a real it's a possibility out there. And, that's something that you bring up that I think a lot of people don't think of, especially, and I know I didn't when I was younger. It's like, well, why don't we just do this?
Right.
Why don't we just turn it off
Right.
and on again and just
Right.
boom, done? And it's like, oh, well, you don't realize, like you just said, hey, if it goes down even for 5 minutes on a reboot, we're going to lose revenue.
That's right.
So is that the real way to do it? And as you get older and learn the systems, you learn that sort of stuff. And too, that from, an IT side, in an IT company, there's the business side and then there's the IT side.
That's right.
And we all do different things, but when we don't get together and talk, that's when we have problems.
Absolutely. 100%.
So, but no, that's Andy, thank you. There's one other one I wanted to bring up because I thought the kids would love it here on the show.
Kids. There's so many kid listeners, right? You're 12 to 18 demographic,
and by kids,
right?
I mean our 43-year-olds and 45-year-olds,
grown man children, right? Right.
Yep.
I almost said man childs. What? Sometimes like, look, I'm a English as a second language speaker. I've spoken English, for the last couple of decades, but every so often, it just gets to me where I'm like, I have like the brain fart moment, and I never said this myself, but it was on a Reddit post. It was like, the burrito skin. You mean a tortilla? Yes, that's what I wanted to say. You just lose the word, and you're like, "What? I mean to say this," and you brain fart, and you're like, "Yes, that's what I meant to say. Tortilla, not burrito skin." Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that with German being your primary language, right? And English being secondary, but you speak English probably all the time, right?
All the time, 100%. I speak English more now than I speak German, even with my mom who still speaks German and my dad who still speaks German. I prefer English. I can understand German just fine, but speaking it is more difficult for me now than speaking English.
Was it when you first came here, was it difficult for you to speak, did you find it the opposite?
So there was a bit of a learning curve.
Younger, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was 14, and thankfully in Germany, I can't speak for the rest of Europe, but in Germany, once you hit the 5th grade, you're forced to learn English, right, in school. But you're taught the proper British English, but then with a thick German accent, right? So I had a couple years worth of understanding of the language, right? But speaking the language out of a textbook is much different from a conversational tone that you have with someone, right? And then sayings, like little sayings, like knock on wood. Knock on wood, why would you knock on wood for things, right? Or the phrase, and then some. And then some what? You're missing a noun there, right? And then some whatever. What are we bringing, right? So there's a lot of little things that kind of tripped me up for a bit. Slang, right? That took me a minute to understand as well. There was one endearing little story that I was working at a coffee shop in the Bentley Mall in Fairbanks, Alaska, right? And the owner was the mom of a good friend of mine at the time. I say at the time, he's still a good friend of mine, but at the time anyway, he was a good friend of mine, and his mom owned this coffee shop, and she, got me a job there. And then one day she calls up, to the shop, and she goes, "Hey, do we need anything? Are we out of anything? Should I go to the store and get anything?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're out of jalapenos." And there was this awkward pause, and she goes, "I'm sorry, what?" Like, "We're out of jalapenos." The lady said, "Andy, what are you talking about?" I'm like, the little green, round, spicy things you put. She goes, "Oh, you mean jalapenos?" I go, "Hold on a minute. How is a J from the jalapenos? How is that pronounced like an H? Jalapeno. That makes no sense." Of course, I didn't know that was a Spanish word, right? That was just bastardized into American English, right? But those are the little things that, or even, it's not fajita, it's fajita, right?
You mean it's not Vegeta either?
That's right. So little things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that took a while, right?
No, you know what though? It is funny that you say things like that, because I remember the first time I saw fajita on a menu, and exactly, I'm, my Americanness and how I like to try to pronounce things like they look. I go, "I'd like to get some of those fajitas."
Fajitas, there you go.
So
Excuse
like,
me,
I
sir?
get it. You don't even have to have two languages to still mess it up. So,
Some things, yeah.
but it's a great point that you brought up, that speaking a different language from a text and speaking a different language conversationally are
Yeah.
two totally different things. Because
Yeah.
I took Spanish for like a year and a half. I couldn't tell you one thing other than things I probably shouldn't say, because that's the only thing I
All
remember.
the juicy words, right?
Exactly.
It reminds me of a story that I even chronicle in the book. But my boss, I was working for Patron, like the tequila maker, for a little while back in the day, and their international office was in Switzerland. And they would send me to said office on several occasions. Well, one, because every so often they needed IT help, and two,
Mhm.
because I spoke German, right? And Swiss is,
Well,
people in
yeah.
Switzerland speak German, right? So it's right there, and it all makes perfect sense. So I get sent over a couple of times just to help them with their stuff. And I get sent back. I'm like, "Oh no, please don't send me to Switzerland again on the company's dime. No, please." "Okay, I'll do it." Right? That kind of thing. So one day, our boss's boss decided to come with us, which is no big deal, right? So then he says, we get to the office after, the day's worth of travel. And then he goes, "All right, Andy, I want you to call the local telephone, the telco, and ask them for such and such. You speak German. You talk to them and get such and such information out of them." I'm like, "All right, boss, I'm on it." And then I sat there and I froze for a second. I go, "Oh, crap, I'm in it deep now." Because, okay,
Yeah.
like to your point, it's one thing to have a conversation with someone. "Hey, how are you? How's your day? What you have for lunch? How's the family?" Right? Those things are a completely different world, a completely different language from the technical aspect of trying to convey something, right? So
Yeah.
he's asking me in English. It all make perfect sense, right? Ask the telco for blah 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 technical stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know these words in German. Like I'm gonna be sitting there like a first second semester
Yeah.
German
Like you
student
just
trying
heard
to
the first word. Yeah.
figure out what to say next, right? So he's like, "I pick up the phone." I'm like, "All right, I'm picking up the phone," and I'm like, what do I do?" Like, I'm a bit of a pickle here, right? So, and my boss was within earshot. Not that he was actively listening, but I knew that he was going to hear whatever I was going to say to the person on the phone. So I called the number. I'm like, "Crap, what do I do?" "Andy, you're in it deep now. Figure something out," right? So the person on the other end picks it up, and I was able to gather all my German speaking prowess, and I was able to muster, "Do you have anyone who speaks English?" My boss, literally from the other room, he said, "What? He's like, Are you freaking kidding me? I fly you out here twice, 3 times a year because you speak German, and that's a phone. That's the only thing you can say is that. Do you have anyone who speaks English? I could have done that too." Well, you're not wrong. I'm just saying
That's
there were
funny.
some linguistical challenges here. Okay,
Yep. No, that's hilarious, because yeah, if you didn't know, right? Like, hey, maybe someone does speak English, and
and
I
I
could
don't
tell
know
you
how to
that.
convey this in German. I just don't. I don't have the technical
Yeah.
vocabulary, right?
That's awesome. That is awesome. I like that though. That's the the last one I wanted to bring up, and it's funny, but in a dark way.
Like
So,
most
and
good
this,
things, right?
like most good things, but this is the last one that, we'll talk, and then I'll let you get back to your life, Andy. But
To my
every
shenanigans, to my tomfooleries.
everything is trying to kill you. Even the sun is giving you cancer.
Yeah. So that's one of my mom isms. My mom will drop these little isms right from time to time, and she's a very realistic, maybe cynical person, but she doesn't sugarcoat things, right? She's a very wholesome, traditional German woman who's lived in the States for as long as I have, right? She still has her very thick German accent, but she's a G. Like, all the people who
Yeah.
have met her, they're like, Mama Dietrich, which is her nickname that we've given her. They're like, she's a freaking G. She's the goat, right? Let me tell you a story about my mom for a second before we veer into the actual saying. So my mom lived in the bush of the Alaskan wilderness for about 20 plus years. She lived in a wooden log cabin that was literally in the middle of nowhere on some plot of land somewhere in the middle of nowhere in past, or was it central in Alaska? If you know the layout of Alaska, you know it's remote, right? And she was even more remote than that. The nearest neighbor was a 45 minutes snowmobile drive away. The nearest town was about 2 hours through trails and other things. So really, really remote living. And she lived in this cabin, for, like I said, a couple of decades, and she would hunt, skin, gut, clean, process wildlife that came in front of her front yard, right? And so she would have some stories about that. Like I said, she's a G with a capital G, right?
Yeah, I know what she stirs
Uh,
her. I know what she stirs her morning
that's
tea
right.
with, or
I
coffee.
was gonna
So
bring that up,
yeah,
but you have to listen to the first episode to get
yes,
to
you got
that,
to go
right?
back and listen to part 1.
That's right. And she has dropped some truth bombs, and she's always been very non-apologetic, very much like, here's how it is, not in a I'm gonna make you understand kind of a way, but more of a, no, this is how life is, right? And she once told me, look, everything's trying to kill you, even the sun is giving you cancer. And I like bringing that up when people say, oh, you're drinking a Celsius. Well, it has aspartame in it. Okay, yep, fair. Well, you're I don't know, you're eating a banana. Well, there's radiation in it, right? You're going through the whatever. There's all these little things that sure, on paper, I'm sure there's a risk in there somewhere, but at the end of the day, none of us are getting out of this alive. And I feel like at the end of the day, that statement, that saying really kind of grounds things, where it's like, even you being out in the sun, it's trying to kill you. Everything in this world
Everything.
is slowly, in its own way, probably trying to kill you, right? And all we can do is just hold it off until our time comes.
Yeah. I
And I
mean,
think,
it's
go ahead.
weird because if you think about it, from the moment that we are born, we start dying.
I was gonna say something just like that, right? The two things we have done since birth is breathing and dying.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only 2 things, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I guess eating too, but some people can go
Well, on and
quite a
off,
few
right?
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But no,
If you
those are
ever
the 2
go ahead.
guarantees, right? Those are the 2 guarantees when you start born. You're going to have to breathe and you're going to have to die. That's
Yeah,
the only guarantees you're going to
100%.
have.
That's right. There's an author called Khalil Gibran who wrote some really, really, in my opinion, very insightful text. There was one book that I mentioned of his called The Prophet. It's a very, very short read. It's a small book, maybe like 80 pages. It's just packed full of isms. And one of the things that he says is that, I'm going to paraphrase and probably butcher it, but a newborn baby is no closer to death than an old person, or vice versa, right? An elderly person is no closer to death than a newborn, which really just kind of drives the point home of, tomorrow is not guaranteed, right? Babies die, old people die. You can get hit by lightning, you can get run over by a car, you can drop dead tomorrow, we can have a heart attack or a stroke. Nothing is promised. Tomorrow is not freaking promised. Like, we are no closer to death than anybody else. It could be your last day today. And one of the other things, I jogged my memory for a second as I said this out loud, I was watching this YouTube clip, and it was like an ER, like the doctor's point of view of how, what they deal with on a busy night when there was like partying going on or whatever. And this one doctor, they followed him around with the cameras and everything, and they were trying to resuscitate this guy who got into a really, really bad, I think it was like motorcycle or car accident or whatever, right? They brought him in. He was already like holding on to the last thread of his life. And they tried everything they could, but they finally lost him, right? And then something tragic happened, whether he drank or he didn't, or whatever the thing was, right? But the doctor said something really interesting. He says, that young man did not wake up this morning thinking it would be his last day.
Yeah. Do any of us?
No. Right? When it happens,
No.
it happens, right?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things of, sure, we hope it happens later. We hope we don't know when it happens. By the end of the day, that's all we get. We get nothing. We have no promise. We have no guarantee, right? The only thing we can hope for is right now.
And that makes me think, and not to get biblical on you, but, from my beliefs, my Christian beliefs, there's a passage where, Jesus says, I will come back like a thief in the night, meaning you won't know when I'm here. And that can apply to death too, because just like a thief in the night, you're not, as you're standing up there looking for it, it's probably not going to come. Right.
Yeah.
But when you're sleeping, a sound in bed, not even worrying about it and thinking about it, that's when it could happen, yeah.
How do you, in a perfect world, how would you like to go?
Probably in my sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be just a nice, I'm a little weird when it comes to the afterlife, because I do have some Christian beliefs that I believe in, but also, like, part of me would not be upset if it was just like lights out and it's done.
Yep.
You know,
You have no
you'd
one
be
to
like, all right,
complain to, right? Who are gonna
no,
write a letter
exactly.
to? Nobody. That's who, right?
Exactly. Now, I definitely don't want to end up in a fiery pit. I'll tell you that. But,
Right.
if you believe in that, but I definitely, I wouldn't mind just going in my sleep. What about you? What about you, Andy? Have you thought
Well,
about
okay.
that?
I have, right? There's a couple different things, right? If you read the last couple of pages of my book, there is
Yeah.
some afterlife beliefs. They're a little more esoteric. I get it. They're a little more out there, but most of the book is a little out there. So it fits the theme of it, right? I was gonna add being trampled to death by a group of puppies, rather
Oh my
by
gosh.
whatever the group whatever
Yeah.
where you call a group of puppies, right? By being trampled to death by a bunch of puppies would not be the worst way to go. Probably wouldn't be the best way either, but somewhere in between, right? So that's
Exactly.
one.
Yeah, could you sit there and be like, "Oh, they're so
They're
cute. I'm
cute. You get
dying."
trampled to death. There's literally 1,000 of them on top of you. I'm getting crushed, but they're so cute. All the tongues everywhere. I agree with you. If I were to, I'm guessing, not guessing, but if I were to do like a mid 80s, maybe low 90s, and then in my sleep just lights out, what I would hate to happen, and this is like one of my fears, is that like Alzheimer's, right? Those kind of
Yeah.
diseases that get you. If I were to lose my mind, and I don't know if people that really suffer from those diseases, if they have moments of clarity, like if you're just out of your mind and then for 10 minutes 6 years later, you have a moment of clarity, right? I don't know if that
Yeah.
happens or not, but
I
if it
think it
were,
does, like,
you think so?
occasionally,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I've talked with some people that I know who have had it, and
Mm-hmm.
even when they're gone, like, they could be gone for a long and what I mean gone, like, just not understanding who
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are, who their
Mentally
people are.
disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, but even when they're gone, they will have moments of clarity, and,
Yeah.
like, for an example, my grandfather, before he was going, he didn't recognize who I was and didn't remember who I was. Obviously, he probably remembered me as a kid, but here we are. He's in his 90s, but, he looked over, he's like, "Oh, Nate, when did you get here?" And I was in the room the whole
Okay.
time,
Okay.
so
So they have moments of
yeah, just
lucidity. Okay.
exactly, so it's like sometimes things just hit, but yeah,
Yeah.
and I
If that
know
were the case, sorry to interrupt. If that were the
no,
case, I would say if I were to lose my mind, and that's one of my biggest fears, losing my freaking mind. If that were to happen to me, and my friends and my family saw me like slipping away, I would just tell them, look, man, if I am past the point of me recognizing what's what and me trying to, you know how I am. I like to be able to think and put things together. Once I lose my freaking marbles, just take care of the problem. Like take care of it. Like pull the plug, load me up with a bunch of benzos and ecstasy and then drop me off in a forest somewhere, right? I don't
exactly,
just
just end it.
let me
Don't let me know.
leave, right? Take me out of my misery.
Yeah.
The
And you know
other,
what? That is a
no,
fear of mine too, the
yeah,
Alzheimer's, because again, like you work in technology, our mind is what we use the most, really, in our profession, And I mean, you could say, "Oh, it's your fingers on the keyboard," but really, it's your mind, how you process. And it's like so losing that would be detrimental. But I think one of the worst things for me is to go in a way that it hurt someone else around me. So, and what I mean by that was I'll give you an example. My mother-in-law lived with us because she guilted my wife into saying, "Don't you ever put me in a home." But my mother-in-law needed more care than what my wife and I could give. And I'm an EMT. So, keep that in
you're
mind.
familiar, yeah.
Yeah,
You
I'm
have,
familiar with how to care with people, but her mental acuity was not there. She didn't know who my wife was. She didn't know who I was, And it's like
that's
but
rough.
she hurt my wife because like she would sit there and all this stuff came from smoking. And for years my wife's like, "You got to quit smoking. You got to quit doing this. You can live a longer life." My mother-in-law was only 58 when she passed. That's super young. And to have
We're
dementia
not
at
too
that
far away
age.
from that. You're
I
not. I mean, I'm
know.
not trying to be
No,
funny.
we're not.
That age is not too far
But
away from us.
but I look at the toll that that took on my wife, and I
Yeah.
don't want that toll. I don't want to be that burden to my wife. I don't want to be that burden to other people. And like losing my mind, I could see myself like being frustrated and saying some really mean things. And that's
Yeah.
one thing that I really wouldn't like. If that happened to me, Deb, if you're listening, just put me in a home. They'll take care of me.
Yeah.
Remember me for what I used to be.
That's right. Don't drag. You have a good. That brings up a good
Yeah,
point, right? Don't drag me down into that lifestyle, that negative quality of life, and then to your point, drag everyone down with you because they feel guilted or obligated or whatever the case may be. Just take care of the problem for me, man. Leave me some dignity on the way out. Okay.
and that's a great thing because a lot of people don't talk about death a lot, and that's I wanted to bring that up just because I thought it was a good saying. Obviously, it's a Mama Dietrich saying, so I know
Thank
we
you.
know that, but it is a good thing, and it helps us to think too, Andy, when we talking to our listeners that may be listening to this or watching on YouTube, whatever, that you are not guaranteed tomorrow,
Yeah.
so be the best version of yourself that you can be today. and, live life to the fullest every opportunity you get. I mean, obviously, we're not all millionaires, so we can't go running around doing every single thing we want, but,
enjoy
take
life.
care of yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy it. Just like you one thing you could do to enjoy it, and I'm gonna do a little pitch for you, is you can go pick up this book, play stupid games,
For
win
the low
stupid
price.
prizes. Yes, it is a fantastic book. So for the audience, if you heard the first episode, I apologize. I'm gonna say this again. It's a fun read. They're short stories. It's a collection of short stories that Andy wrote here. They're things that you can relate to. If you've got any type of sense of humor at all, I think you'll be just fine with this book. If you don't, you might want to skip it. No, I'm just saying.
There's even a disclaimer at the beginning, right?
There is, exactly. But yeah, just, it's an easy read. It's fun. I read it in one sitting and I never do that. So it's great to just get out there, give it a look. I think you could get it. Where can we get it again, Andy?
Yeah. If you go to andysbook.com, punch that in, one word, andysbook.com, punch that in. And then there's a picture of me holding up the book. There's a link to the Amazon page right below it. If you ask nicely, just drop me a line. There's a contact me and say, hey man, can I get a free copy? Absolutely. Like I got some of them left over here. They cost me a couple bucks to send out. I'm more than happy to send you a copy, even with the signature on it. I'm more interested. I'll give you the spiel, right? So I charge $11.95 for the book online on Amazon. My cut is $4.80. So I'm not going to get rich off it. I'm not going to get rich off anytime soon, right? If you ask for it, I'll send you a PDF for free. I'll send you a signed copy. Like, I'm not in for the money. I want to get my thoughts, my opinions, my Andyisms out there. And as long as, to your point, if you enjoyed it, dude, that's all. The fact that we can talk about the silliness of the stories, that's enough. Like, that's enough gratitude for me. I don't even need to get paid. That's all I need to get out of it, right? That people can sit there, enjoy my stories. We can laugh together. We can be introspective together, and we're like, cool. That was time well spent. That's exactly all I ask.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not killing time. We're spending good quality time with each other, Andy.
That's right.
No, it is good. It's a good book, folks. Get out there and read it. It's so much fun to read, especially with the weather getting nicer. Sit outside, maybe get yourself a nicer
for you.
Whatever,
we're gonna get hot. Like,
well, yeah. So we were just talking, so everybody knows. Andy's in Las Vegas area. I'm in Akron, Ohio area, and we were talking about what's your temperature there, Andy?
So we hit it's unnaturally high this weekend, 104, 105, which is high for this time of year. It should be in the mid-high 90s.
Mid-high 90s, and I was telling them here in Ohio, we're exactly opposite. We should be in the high 60s, low 70s.
No one likes a bragger, Nathan.
We're sitting at 54 degrees. I'm freezing here.
I can't.
Yeah, it is funny though, how it can be so different in the different areas. But no, Andy, is there anything else coming up for you? Do you got anything else that's going on? I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but I didn't know if you were doing a part 2 to the book or anything like that.
Yeah, so I don't think there will be. Now, of course, if some publisher says, hey man, here's a $50,000 advance, right? Pump out part 2, I may be convinced otherwise, right? There's some stories I left out. There's some stories or some experiences I've made since then. Yeah. I think this is it though, right? I mean, I poured a lot of my everything into it. If you read the book and have never met me, I think that'll give you a good idea of who and what I am. There are some parts in the book where I'm being very vulnerable.
Yes.
To the point where even I was a little uncomfortable writing some of the passages. But I think it'll give you a good sense of who and what I am. But no, I just don't think there'll be a part 2. This is it. Now, so of course, if a movie studio were to approach me and be like, hey, can I make a movie out of it? I guess I could. I guess we'll come up with a couple more stories. Sure. Twist my arm, why don't you?
Even better, let's just do a TV series called Play Stupid Games, right?
Like a sketch comedy or something, like
exactly.
a Key and Peele kind of a thing, right?
We can act out each scene, right? So no, but it's a great book. I know you're working in technology. I want to, I hope everything goes well with you on your trip. Hopefully your girlfriend becomes your fiance.
Thank you.
Or else, yeah.
That's right. No, I think.
But no, I'm glad you're going on a trip. I wish you guys the best of luck. Obviously, Andy, you could come back anytime you want.
We will. I will. We'll schedule this out. So yeah, absolutely.
I think this is definitely fun having you back. You're definitely a fan favorite. Like I said, it's, the numbers don't sound high when I tell them to you, but when you look at podcast ratings, that you got multiple hundred in your first week that is pretty awesome.
Hell yeah. I love that. Even soon, I always worry about, so I've gone to plenty of music festivals, right? Like DJs will perform and everything. I've been to one where they sell the place out. I've been to the ones where there's literally 3 people in front of the DJ booth, kind of haphazardly dancing or whatever. I put myself in the shoes of these DJs. Of course, when you sell out the house, that's one of those, my God, I freaking made it, right? but no one starts at that level, right? I'm sure these big name DJs, these big artists, these musical,
Yeah,
whatever, these
exactly.
bands or whatever, they started like Imagine Dragons when they started here in Vegas. They played in front of nobody, right? Because nobody
Yeah.
knew who they were. And it's like, yeah, if you're that person who gets one fan, one person who said, I enjoyed that. That's really all it takes, whether it's one person or a million people. There really is no difference between those two things. So the fact that even one person from your stream or from your
Yeah.
listeners was like, I enjoyed that. Maybe I'll buy it. Maybe I won't. Who cares, right? But the fact that they get some enjoyment
Exactly.
out of it, that's enough, you know?
Yeah, and I look at it was one of the, I don't want to say one of the most because, all of my episodes with my guests are great, but it was one of the most fun ones that I had. And I think
Thank
people
you.
could see that. We got a lot of interaction online. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks your mom is metal, by the way. So that's right. That's right. So, but no, Andy, again, thanks for spending your
Thanks for
time with
having me,
us
man.
here
I had a good
and
time.
for sharing
Oh,
your
yeah.
stories. But we'll definitely keep doing this as we go throughout however long this wild ride lasts.
That's right. Tomorrow's on promise.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just a Dude Podcast, where we've dove in once again and laughed and learned with the one and only Andy Dietrich. From news stories to deeper insights, Andy's shown us how to embrace life's mess ups with a grin and a lesson. A huge thank you to Andy for coming back and sharing more of his world with us. If you haven't already, grab Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes on Amazon. It's a roller coaster of laughs and wisdom you won't want to miss. Follow us on social media for updates, and if Andy's stories have you reflecting on your own stupid games, drop us a comment or leave us a review. We'd love to hear them. Keep playing the game of life, but maybe aim for a slightly smarter prizes. I'm Nathan, signing off. Stay real, dudes and dudettes.